Hi, my name is Christopher Whitaker, and I'm the Code for America Brigade Captain for Chicago, here to do a quick video on Civic Hacking 101. The Civic Hacking 101 class is something that I do every Tuesday at 1871, which is Chicago's co-working space. During our hack nights, we have a lot of people who are brand new to civic hacking and open government, and so we kind of do this as a primer. Usually it lasts about 15 to 20 minutes, and it's meant to sort of orient people into kind of the world of civic innovation and open government and civic hacking. And we do this because I know when I first got into this, coming from a government background, having no web development experience whatsoever, it was kind of confusing at first because, why is everybody talking about jewelry and snakes, and what is GitHub, and what is all this? So this is just sort of an orientation just to get people started. So we'll get started. So what is civic hacking? When you hear the word hacking, it kind of gets a bad rap because, there was that bad movie in the 90s, and you see these news stories on TV, ooh, foreign terrorists are going to get your data. When really all hacking is tinkering. And when we're talking about civic hacking, we're talking about tinkering with data that cities and governments have put out to the public that anybody can access and use, and using that data to do something interesting or useful with. Good example, street sweeping. So if you live in a major city, or if you live in Chicago, they're going to sweep the streets. And if you don't move your car, you get a ticket, or worse, you get your car towed. So what the city did is they put out a data set on all the places they're going to sweep the streets. But in this format, it's not really very user-friendly. You kind of see the month and dates and what section, but it's very confusing. So what they did was a guy named Scott Robin created this app called Sweep Around Us. And what it does is you just put in your address, and it will find when they're sweeping your street, so you know to go move your car. To get this information, all the app does is it searches this data set, finds what you're looking for, and then just displays it in a way that's easy for people to see. The other very cool thing it does is you can tell it that, hey, shoot me an email or text me the day that my street's being swept so I can remember to move my car and avoid the tickets. This, in a nutshell, is what civic hacking is all about. It's taking data that's been released by the government and doing something interesting or useful with it. So what is open data? Open data is data that's been produced by the government that is accessible to anyone, machine readable, which means that I can program a computer to read all the data for me, so I'm not constantly trying to figure out stuff line by line by line. It's free of charge, nobody pays for the data, and a lot of times it's just data that has been trapped on individual computers at City Hall that they've just put online for people to use. A good example is food inspection data. So in the past, people would go out, inspect restaurants, write that stuff down, they'd get back to their office, they'd type all that information into a computer, and it would just sit there. Now, if you wanted the information, you could file a Freedom of Information Act request, get that information from the city, and then kind of go line by line to see, what are you interested in. But now, the city actually publishes this data on a regular basis, so that if I wanted to see, this new restaurant opened up and I want to see if it passed its food inspection yet, I can just go online and search the city's data portal to find that information. Or if I'm, wanted to check on a new restaurant, or I wanted to see why this restaurant closed, I can look at the food inspection data and see if they were closed because they were being too unhealthy. So there's all kinds of things that the city releases. 311 requests, reporting on potholes, graffiti, abandoned buildings, just all kinds of things that the city does on a daily basis that instead of having that information trapped on a computer where no one can use, they've actually put that out online so people can make interesting and useful things. The other thing that we're real big on in sort of the open government civic hacking movement is a concept of open source. Open source software is software that the code that makes the software work is published online, where anybody can use, anybody can kind of tinker with it for free. A good example that we're particularly proud of is the Chicago Flu Shot Finder app. So at one of our hack nights, we were visited by the city health department, and the city health department was saying, it'd be really useful if there was a way for residents to be able to find flu shots near them. And so Tom Campari created this flu shot app. Now, it's not going to show anything because flu shot season's over, but essentially what you do is you enter in your address, it would return a list of flu shots near you, and with one click, you could find transit directions to the flu shot. And so the city adopted this, people used it, everything's great. In January, the city of Boston declared a public health emergency because the flu had gotten so bad there. And so my counterpart in Boston shot me an email and said, hey, I remember a couple weeks ago you were talking about this flu shot app. Well, this is something really useful, and we'd like to deploy it in Boston. And so what we did was we introduced him to Tom, and then we shared the flu shot repository on a site called GitHub. GitHub's a site where you can post sort of repositories of your Civic web application. You could see all the files that make the application work. You can see kind of how they built the app. And GitHub has two very cool features. The first one is this button that says fork. So if you're thinking about a family tree, so you have the parents, and then you have all the sons and daughters off the family tree. That's sort of the same concept for GitHub. So what Boston did was they went to Tom's repository and they forked it so that they could work on getting the app in Boston. And in less than 36 hours, Boston had its own flu shot app up and running and ready to go. That's a big reason. The ability to be able to do that is a big reason why we're so big on open source. Because if we're building stuff for the public and building apps and web tools that are going to be useful to everyday citizens, we don't want that just for our city. We want other cities to be able to use these tools as well. The other good thing about GitHub is you have an ability to say you want to issue a pull request. So when Boston got a hold of it, Boston made some improvements to the app, and then they said, hey Tom, we want you to pull our changes into your app to help improve both of our apps. And so that's what a pull request is. So as you can imagine, GitHub has a lot of room for collaboration, which is cool. So when you're at your hacking event, you can get together with different people, be working on different stuff, and as you make improvements or start to build your app, you can use GitHub to sort of collaboratively code Civic software. So that's kind of a primer on GitHub and open source. The other big thing that is involved with civic hacking is community organizing. So it's one thing to have a bunch of geeks in a room building stuff for geeks. That's cool, that's interesting, but that's not the best way to go about it. The best apps that we've produced here in Chicago are apps that we've partnered with community members in order to see, okay, you're kind of wrestling with this problem day in and day out. How can we build something that fits your need and help solve your specific problem? Because you're the one wrestling with the problem every day. You're the subject matter expert. And this helps us create much better apps than just having geeks in a room. A good example is an app called schoolcuts.org. In Chicago, they're closing a lot of schools down. And so, as you can imagine, you have a lot of parents who are saying, what's the information on my school? Why are they closing my school? What's going to happen to the school that my son or daughter is moving into? And so they've created the School Cuts site that displays all the data on this school. So you can see, a map of where they're at, where the attendance boundary is, demographics on the school, what their performance has been, what their mobility was. So if there's a lot of people kind of bouncing in and out of the school, it gets harder to judge how a school's doing if it's all different people from year to year. And then you can also see their enrollment trend. The other good thing you can do with this site is, so you see the Sexton is closing, but Fisk is the receiving school. So you can, with one click, you can kind of compare the two schools. So here's information on kind of how CPS grades school, and then you see kind of information on your school and information on the school that is going to be receiving students. And why I point out School Cuts is it presents information in a way that's very easy for parents and concerned residents to find the information they need. And the reason why it's designed the way it is because the group that worked on this partnered with a parent organization to ask them, okay, what information do you need? How can we help present this information? And as they started building the site, they kept the conversation going. So as sort of more information is released about the school closings, they were able to tailor the site to meet the needs of that community. And that's sort of one of the better examples of kind of partnering with community organizations and civic hacking groups to make something that's really useful to the community at a moment in time where they really need the information. So that's kind of civic hacking in a nutshell. I know I've thrown kind of a lot of information at you at once. If you're at a civic hacking event, you feel free to ask around. Civic hacking events are very collaborative. Everybody is new at this. We haven't been doing this that long, so everybody's still learning. And so don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're watching on YouTube, sort of between now and National Day of Civic Hacking, feel free to ping me questions. I'm on Twitter at Civic Whitaker. You can also reach us at Code for America. So if you go to our website, we have a contact information there on how you can reach us. We're all very eager to help civic hacking and civic innovation and open government and open data help spread everywhere we can. So feel free to ping us if you have any questions. If you want to see some other examples of some of the apps that Chicago's put on, you can go to opencityapps.org, and you can see a number of different civic apps that have been built in Chicago. So thank you very much for listening. Like I said, if you have any questions about civic hacking, feel free to ping me on Twitter at Civic Whitaker, and happy hacking.